Imagine your worst nightmare. And I don't mean the standard anxiety dream where you show up to work without your pants or, you're taking a final exam for a class you never attended. I'm talking about a specific career-ending, life-shattering scenario that strikes at the very core of who you think you are.
Okay, set the stage for me.
You are a respected assistant district attorney. You spent over 20 years believing in the system, putting bad guys behind bars, standing on the side of right.
You're the guy the town looks to.
You are the guy, the one who stands up in court and speaks for the victims. And then a 14-year-old boy is found murdered in your jurisdiction. It's your case. You're on the scene, you're looking at the body, you're comforting the grieving parents, you are hunting a monster.
Right, you're the hero of the story. You're the one who's supposed to restore order to all this chaos.
Exactly. Until the evidence starts coming in. And it doesn't point to a stranger. It doesn't point to the local creepy guy living by the park.
Oh, no.
It points directly at your own 14-year-old son.
That is the ultimate conflict of interest. It's the prosecutor's paradox. You're describing the story of Andrew Barber.
That's exactly who we are talking about. We are doing a deep dive into the case of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts v. Jacob Barber.
Yeah.
But we aren't just recounting the plot of a crime drama or some courtroom thriller. We are looking at the source material, specifically the grand jury testimony given by Andy Barber in April 2008 to reconstruct the total collapse of a family.
And I think that's absolutely the right approach, because on the surface, this looks like a procedural legal thing. But when you really dig into the documents we have, it's a tragedy about the limits of parental love. It forces us to ask two terrifying questions. How well do we really know our children? And maybe even worse, can we ever really escape our own biology?
You've got a massive stack of notes here covering everything from the sociology of affluent suburbs to the controversial science of the so-called murder gene.
Right.
So let's get into it. The mission today is to unpack the events surrounding the death of Ben Rifkin and figure out where the line is between being a good father and being an accessory to murder.
A heavy mission, but a necessary one. So where do we start?
We have to start with the setting, Newton, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
The source material spends a lot of time establishing this place. It's not just a backdrop. It's practically a character in the narrative.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't understand Newton, you don't understand the pressure cooker these people are living in.
Absolutely. If you aren't from that part of the world, you need to understand what Newton represents. It's described as a community of families.
That's his brand, right?
It is. It's wealthy, yes, but it's not flashy like Beverly Hills or, frantic like Manhattan. It's academic. It's safe. It is the specific destination for people who want to escape the unpredictability of the city.
Right. It's the bubble. You pay the high taxes, which are astronomical, by the way.
Oh.
And you tolerate the boring suburban existence for one specific product. Safety for your kids. You move there so your kids can ride their bikes to the park without you worrying.
Exactly. The biggest danger in Newton is supposed to be a B- on a math test, or maybe getting cut from the varsity soccer team. A manicured reality. The lawns are perfect, the schools are Ivy League feeders, and the crime rate is negligible. And that context is crucial because of what happens on April 12th, 2007.
The day the bubble popped.
The day the bubble popped. A jogger named Paula Ginetto is running through Cold Spring Park. Now, this is a dense wood that borders the McCormick Middle School.
So, a place kids would hang out.
Totally. It's a place where kids hang out, smoke cigarettes, do whatever kids do when they think adults aren't watching. And she finds a body.
Ben Rifkin, 14 years old.
Yeah.
A prominent kid in the community.
Correct. And the details of the crime scene are just jarring. I want to focus on the medical examiner's report for a second because it tells us a lot about the killer, and frankly, it's disturbing. Ben was found with 3 stab wounds to the chest. But it wasn't a frenzy. It wasn't a chaotic slashing. It was a very specific pattern. The report calls it a trident pattern.
A trident, like 3 holes in a line.
3 holes, evenly spaced. And one of them punctured the heart. This implies a very specific weapon.
Yeah, you don't get that from a kitchen knife.
You don't get a trident pattern from a kitchen knife or a Swiss Army knife. You get that from a weapon designed to do damage. It suggests a tool that stabs and maybe has a serrated edge or a unique shape that leaves a signature.
That's terrifying.
Yep.
It implies premeditation, or at least the carrying of a weapon that has no other purpose than violence. And the report also mentioned a lack of defensive wounds.
That's the detail that keeps me up at night. Ben didn't fight back.
At all.
No scratches on his arms, no skin under his fingernails. The town described it as a sucker punch. It implies he knew his killer. He let them get close. He wasn't afraid until it was too late.
So it wasn't a stranger jumping out of the bushes.
No. It was someone he probably said hello to right before he died.
So you have this brutal, intimate violence happening in the middle of this sanctuary town. The psychological impact on the community must have been immediate.
Visceral is the word I'd use. It triggers a primal fear. You have to understand, in a place like Newton, parents believe they can control outcomes. They hire tutors to control grades. They hire coaches to control sports performance. But you can't control a predator in the woods. And we see this panic manifest almost immediately at the Shiva, the Jewish mourning period for Ben Rifkin.
Or wake for Ben Rifkin. The description of this scene in the notes is really intense. It says the house was crowded, almost like a party atmosphere.
But not a happy party. It's that nervous, hysterical energy where people are laughing too loud because if they stop, they'll scream.
Yeah.
And you see the social stratification of Newton right there in the Rifkin house. Andy Barber calls them the tribes. You have the kids huddled in the den, totally shocked into silence.
Just staring at the TV.
Staring at the TV, but not really watching it. And then you have the parents in the kitchen obsessively confessing their fears to one another. It's this illusion of closeness brought on by tragedy.
I'm so scared for my kids over a plate of bagels. It feels almost voyeuristic for the adults while the kids are actually traumatized.
Precisely. It's performative grief mixed with genuine terror. But the most important interaction here is between Andy Barber and the victim's father, Dan Rifkin.
Dan is.
Well, he's broken.
He's destroyed. He's sitting in a dim room, wearing a suit with a torn lapel, which is a traditional Jewish symbol of mourning, the kriya, and he grabs Andy, and he's desperate. But he's not just asking who did it. He's asking a philosophical question. He wants a rational reason for evil. He asks Andy, why do they do it? What makes them capable of it? He needs the world to make sense again.
And this is where we get our first real look at Andy Barber's psychology, because his reaction isn't exactly warm and fuzzy. He doesn't hug the guy and cry with him.
No, it's professional. Andy retreats into what he calls the prosecutor's fallacy.
Define that for us. It's a defense mechanism. To be a prosecutor, especially on murder cases, you have to maintain an emotional distance. If you let yourself feel what the victim's family feels, you'll burn out in a week.
You can't do the job.
You can't do the job if you are weeping over the autopsy photos. So Andy treats the murder as a technical problem to be solved. He tells Dan to get a support group. He puts up a wall.
He thinks he's being strong. He thinks he's being the steady hand on the wheel.
He thinks he's being effective. He believes that by staying detached, he is serving justice. But in that moment, to Dan Rifkin, he just looks cold. And that coldness comes back to haunt him later. It creates a rift right at the beginning.
It's interesting because that wall, that professional detachment, starts to crumble the second he gets home. There's this debate between Andy and his wife, Lori, about reopening the school.
This is the central conflict of the early narrative. The murder happened on a Thursday. By the next week, the school board wants to reopen. They want to get back to normal.
And Lori's not having it.
Lori is terrified. She's the voice of maternal instinct here. She says, "My child is in danger. A killer is loose." She wants guarantees that Andy simply cannot give.
And Andy takes the pragmatic view. Life goes on.
Right. He argues that you can't let fear rule the community. He says the school is a safe place. He gives her the statistics. But let's be honest, he's gaslighting her a little bit, isn't he?
How so?
Because he knows there is a killer loose. He knows they have 0 leads. He knows the weapon hasn't been found. He is playing the odds, telling her it's safe. But he doesn't actually know that.
No.
He's prioritizing the appearance of normalcy over the reality of the threat. He wants to believe the bubble is still intact, so he acts like it is.
And while the parents are having this high-stakes argument about safety, we have to look at Jacob, their son. The kid's the same age as the victim. He went to school with Ben, and his reaction is weirdly mute.
Mute is a good way to put it. While his parents are agonizing, Jacob is sleeping late. He's playing video games.
Just normal teenage stuff.
On the surface, when they ask him how he feels about going back to school, he just shrugs and says, "I'm fine."
Is that just being a teenager, though? I mean, 14-year-old boys aren't exactly known for their emotional articulation. I remember being 14. I probably wouldn't have poured my heart out to my parents either.
That's the ambiguity the story plays with. On the surface, yes, it's typical teenage behavior. Withdrawal. Monosyllabic answers. But in the context of a brutal stabbing of a classmate, it reads as chilling.
Yeah.
Is it shock? Is it resilience? Or is it a profound lack of empathy? That's the question that starts to nag the listener and eventually at Andy himself. He looks at his son and wonders, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you scared?
So let's move to the investigation itself. Andy Barber is the first assistant DA. He decides to keep this case for himself. He doesn't recuse himself.
Which is crazy.
Now, looking back, that seems insane. His son is a classmate of the victim. His son is in the potential suspect pool, technically.
It is insane. It's a massive ethical breach. But Andy rationalizes it. He claims he didn't know Ben Rifkin personally, so technically there's no conflict. He tells himself that living in the town makes him more motivated to catch the killer. He thinks he's the best man for the job because he has skin in the game.
But is it arrogance?
It's a mix of arrogance and a desire for control. Later in his testimony, he admits he wanted to control the flow of information. He wanted to be the one to solve it to protect the town. He viewed himself as the protector.
Right.
But almost immediately the investigation hits a wall. Andy calls it the mindfuck.
A mindfuck. Colorful legal terminology.
Very, but accurate. Basically, the case goes silent immediately. No witnesses, no weapon.
Yeah.
It feels like the killer is taunting them. The killer managed to stab a boy 3 times in a public park in broad daylight and vanish without a trace. And in that vacuum of evidence, detectives do what humans always do. They try to find a narrative that fits their bias.
They look for the other.
They look for the other. Enter Leonard Patz.
The perfect villain.
Absolutely. Leonard Patz is a convicted sex offender living near the park. He's creepy, he's a loner, and he has a prior record involving grabbing a 14-year-old boy in a library. He fits the profile of a predator perfectly.
He's the monster under the bed. He's exactly who the parents of Newton want the killer to be.
Exactly. And Andy locks onto him. This is a classic case of confirmation bias, and he needs it to be Pat's.
Right.
If it's Pat's, then the town is safe because the monster came from the outside. It wasn't one of us, it wasn't a student, it wasn't a neighbor.
So they bring Pat's in. They interrogate him. Andy pushes him hard. He's aggressive.
He tries to break him. He's looking for that one slip-up. But Pat's denies everything. He says, I never hurt anyone. And crucially, Pat's lawyer, a guy named Jonathan Klein, shuts the interrogation down before Andy can get a false confession.
So they're left with nothing.
The detectives are left with nothing but a gut feeling. Andy later admits to the grand jury that focusing on Pat's might have been a mistake, that he was looking for evidence to fit his theory rather than a theory to fit the evidence.
And while Andy is obsessing over the local sex offender, he's completely missing what's happening right under his nose at the middle school. The student interviews.
This scene is fascinating because it highlights the generational divide. Andy and Detective Paul Duffy interview the kids expecting them to crack.
Yeah, they're just kids.
They think, these are just kids, they'll spill. But they get stonewalled. The kids deny knowing Ben well. They deny seeing anything. It's not just awkwardness. It's a coordinated silence.
It's like a secret society. Omerta for 8th graders.
It is. And Andy realizes, somewhat too late, that the real conversation isn't happening in the principal's office. It's happening online. It's happening on Facebook. And you have to remember, this is 2007.
Right, the dawn of the social media age. Parents like Andy and Lori aren't really on Facebook yet. They don't have the app on their phones because, well, smartphones barely existed.
They think of it as a toy. They don't realize it's the new town square. They are completely excluded from the digital life of their children. There's a moment where a student named Sarah Grohl hints at secrets. She asks Andy if he's the bad cop, but she won't betray the tribe to an adult. She basically tells him, you don't know what's going on.
Until the dam breaks. And it breaks because of an anonymous email.
The digital clue. Andy gets a tip leading him to a Facebook memorial page called Friends of Ben Rifkin. He logs in, probably using a fake account or a borrowed one, and what he finds is disturbing.
It's not just mourning.
No, it's not mourning. It's a digital lynch mob.
And the target isn't Leonard Patz. It's Jacob.
The comments are vicious. Go die. The world would be a better place without you. I know what you did. Andy is shocked. He had no idea his son was a pariah. He thought Jacob was just a quiet kid.
And then he sees it.
But then he scrolls down and sees the comment from Derek Yu. Derek is supposed to be Jacob's friend.
That comment, Jacob, everyone knows you did it. You have a knife. I've seen it.
I've seen it. 3 words that dismantle Andy Barber's life. Suddenly, the abstract fear becomes concrete evidence. Andy isn't just a prosecutor anymore. He's a father who realizes his son might be in possession of a deadly weapon.
A weapon that might match those wounds.
A weapon that matches the trident wound pattern.
So he acts.
Yeah.
He waits for Jacob to go to school, and he tosses the room.
He violates his son's privacy in the most profound way. He goes through the drawers, the messy piles of clothes, the school books, and he finds it
Where?
wrapped in a T-shirt in the bureau.
And it's not a Boy Scout knife. It's not a little pocket knife for whittling.
No, the description is very specific and very chilling. It's a combat-style folding knife. It has a serrated blade described as sinister and beautiful with a hook shape.
Oh, wow.
It is a weapon designed for ripping. It matches the stab-pull-rip motion needed to create the wounds found on Ben Rifkin. It is, for all intents and purposes, a murder weapon.
That moment, standing in your kid's room, holding a weapon that looks like it killed a classmate. The cognitive dissonance must be deafening.
It is.
You want to believe your kid is good, but you're holding an instrument of death.
It's the pivot point of the entire story. Andy confronts Jacob when he gets home, and Jacob's defense is weak.
What does he say?
He says he bought it at an Army-Navy store because it was cool. He denies ever taking it to the park. He says he only showed it to friends once.
It sounds like a lie. It sounds like a kid getting caught with his hand in the cookie jar, except the cookie jar is a homicide.
It sounds like a lie. But here's where we get into the ethical weeds. Andy Barber, the assistant district attorney, the man who believes in the law, the man who swore an oath,
Yeah.
he takes the knife and he walks out to a dumpster and he throws it away.
He destroys potential evidence in a capital murder case.
He obstructs justice,
Yep.
felony level. He could go to prison for this alone.
Why? How does he justify that to himself? How does a man of the law do that?
This is the most interesting part of his grand jury testimony later. He constructs a logic puzzle to save his conscience. He says, I know Jacob is innocent. I am his father. I know his heart. Since Jacob is innocent, this knife, by definition, cannot be the murder weapon.
So he's not destroying evidence.
Therefore, I am not destroying evidence. I am simply removing a stupid mistake that could be misinterpreted by the police.
That is, wow. That is a staggering rationalization.
It's Olympic-level mental gymnastics, but it's also deeply human. In that moment, he ceases to be an officer of the court. He is purely a father protecting his cub.
Right.
He knows that if the police find that knife, even if it's not the murder weapon, the optics will destroy Jacob. So he removes the variable. He takes the law into his own hands.
But he's playing God with the facts.
He is, and deep down, he has to know it. If he was 100% sure Jacob was innocent, he wouldn't need to throw the knife away.
Yeah.
He throws it away because he is afraid. He throws it away because there is a sliver of doubt in his mind that he can't face.
And the irony is, while he is throwing away the knife, the walls are closing in anyway. The town is organizing a massive search party for the weapon.
Hundreds of volunteers sweeping Cold Spring Park. They are poking through leaves, looking for exactly what Andy just dumped.
And he has to just watch.
Andy watches from the sidelines, knowing he just threw away a knife, hoping to God it's not the knife. And that's when he runs into Dan Rifkin again.
The victim's father.
And this scene is heartbreaking. Dan approaches Andy on the soccer field. He's a shell of a man. And he accuses Andy of lying. He says he feels like the only real person in a world of actors. He smells the conflict of interest. He demands a new prosecutor.
Dan's instincts are spot on. He doesn't know what Andy did, but he knows something is wrong.
They are. He doesn't know about the knife, but he knows Andy isn't trying hard enough to look at his own kid. And Dan gets his wish. Shortly after this, Andy gets summoned to the DA's office. His boss, Lynn Canavan, is there, and so is Neil Legitides.
Neil Legitides, we haven't talked about him yet.
He's important. He's Andy's protege. Andy trained him. But Neil is ambitious, and in this moment, he is the executioner. They remove Andy from the case.
Just like that.
But then they drop the bomb. It wasn't just Dan Rifkin's complaints that got Andy fired. It was forensic evidence.
A fingerprint.
A single, perfect fingerprint found on the inside tag of Ben Rifkin's sweatshirt, and it matches Jacob Barber's right thumb.
This changes everything. The knife was circumstantial, the bullying was hearsay, but a fingerprint, not just on the body, but on the inside of his clothing. That puts Jacob at the scene, touching the body.
It destroys Andy's innocent until proven guilty narrative. Andy realizes the game is up. He races home to beat the search warrant.
Oh, man.
He finds the house empty. Jacob is hiding. The police, the CPAC unit he used to work with, arrive to search his own home. He's forced to wait outside on the curb like a common criminal.
It's a total inversion of his identity. He goes from being the hunter to the hunted.
And the humiliation is public. Lori arrives. devastated. She's trying to scrub graffiti off their house. Someone has written murderer on the siding.
Oh.
The community has turned. The bubble has burst completely. They are now the enemies of the state.
And then they find Jacob.
They find him hiding in a play structure at his old elementary school. It's such a poignant image. A 14-year-old murder suspect curling up in a plastic tube designed for first graders. It emphasizes how young he actually is. He's just a kid.
But when he's caught, Jacob makes a statement, and it's
As he says, I found him. He was already lying there. I tried to pick him up. I got scared and ran.
I got scared and ran.
It's a plausible explanation for the fingerprint. He touched Ben to check on him to see if he was okay.
But it doesn't explain why he didn't tell anyone.
It raises a massive logical hole. Why didn't he tell anyone? Why did he go to school the next day and act fine? Why did he let the town live in terror of a predator for weeks if he knew Ben was already dead?
That's the sticking point.
Yeah.
Is that the reaction of a terrified child who just wants to wish it away? Or is it a calculated lie prepared by a sociopath to explain the evidence?
That is the question Andy Barber has to wrestle with. And it doesn't help that when they visit Jacob in jail that night, Jacob seems detached again. He compares the situation to The Matrix. He asks if this is a simulation.
That comment really threw me. His parents are crying, his life is on the line, and he's talking about Keanu Reeves.
It suggests a profound dissociation. Whether that's a coping mechanism or a symptom of something darker is up for debate. But things are about to get even more complicated for the Barber family.
Right.
Because Andy has been keeping a secret. A big one.
This is where the story pivots from a crime drama to a genetic tragedy. We need to talk about the Barber blood.
Right. Following the arrest, Andy realizes he can't hide his past anymore. He has to come clean to Lori. He reveals that he isn't just a guy from a regular working-class family. He comes from a long line of violent men.
Let's run down the family tree.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just one bad apple, it's the whole orchard.
It starts with James Burkett, the great-grandfather, a feral criminal from North Dakota. We're talking rape, attempted murder, professional thuggery.
Just a bad dude.
A truly bad dude. He changed his name to Barber to hide his past. He was a man who solved problems with his fists and worse.
Then the grandfather, Rusty.
Rusty Barber, a World War II hero, Medal of Honor recipient. You'd think the line improved, but the violence just shifted contexts. He turns violent at home. He eventually guts a man in a road rage incident.
Oh, wow.
He has that same explosive, uncontrollable temper. The war gave him an outlet, but once the war was over, the violence came home.
And finally, Andy's father, Billy Barber.
Bloody Billy.
Yeah.
He's currently in prison for life. He killed a girl with a knife in a row house.
With a knife.
A knife. The echo there is unmistakable. He's a cold-blooded killer.
So Andy has spent his entire life trying to stop the line.
Exactly. He became a prosecutor, a man of the law, specifically to prove he wasn't like them. He hid his history from everyone, including Lori.
She had no idea.
None. He thought if he raised his son in a nice house in Newton with good schools and a loving mother, he could nurture the violence out of the bloodline. He thought he could beat biology with a white picket fence.
But now that secret is out.
Yeah.
And Lori, she feels completely betrayed.
She feels like she was tricked into a genetic experiment. She looks at Jacob, the knife, the lack of empathy, the fingerprint, and she starts to wonder if biology is destiny.
Oh, man.
Did she give birth to a monster because of Andy's DNA? This is the core theme. Nature versus nurture. Can you love the violence out of a child, or is it written in the code?
And the prosecution weaponizes this, don't they?
Neil Legidus, the new prosecutor, brings up the family history in court during the arraignment. He argues for high bail by suggesting Jacob has a genetic predisposition to violence.
He puts the DNA on trial.
He basically puts Jacob's DNA on trial.
The murder gene.
Yeah.
Now, we need to be clear here. Is that real science?
It's largely considered junk science in the legal world. There is a gene, the MAOA gene, often linked to aggression, but using it to predict murder is incredibly shaky.
So you can have it and not be violent.
You can have the gene and be a saint. Andy dismisses it immediately as legal theatrics, but as a narrative device in a courtroom, it's powerful. It plants the seed in the jury's mind, and in Lori's mind, that Jacob was born bad.
And it affects Jacob, too.
Deeply. Jacob is sitting in a strategy meeting with his lawyer, and he learns for the first time that his grandfather and great-grandfather were violent criminals. He learns that his dad lied to him his whole life.
And what does he say?
And he says something chilling. He says, "It's who I am."
It's who I am.
He feels like his identity has been a lie. For a teenager who is already obsessed with, who am I? The answer suddenly becomes, I am the descendant of murderers.
Yeah, it becomes an explanation.
It validates his worst feels about himself. It frames his own actions, buying the knife, the lack of empathy, not as teenage mistakes, but as symptoms of a disease he inherited.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the situation is bleak. Jacob is out on bail, but the Barber family is destroyed.
The community has turned on them. There's graffiti on their house. Their friends have abandoned them. They are isolated in their own home, waiting for the trial.
Prisoners.
They are prisoners in the very house they bought for safety.
And the legal battle is just beginning. The defense team has to fight a circumstantial case. They have a fingerprint, but Jacob has an explanation. They don't have the murder weapon, thanks to Andy. It's going to be a battle of narratives.
But the real battle is happening inside the house, between Andy and Lori, and inside Andy's own head.
Yeah.
That is the final thought I want to leave you with. Andy threw away that knife because he told himself he knew Jacob was innocent. He told himself that a barber wouldn't do this, that he had broken the cycle. But now,
Now he knows about the fingerprint.
faced with the fingerprint,
Yeah.
faced with Jacob's strange detachment and staring down the barrel of 3 generations of violent men, does he still know?
Or is he just hoping?
Exactly. Is he a prosecutor looking at the facts or a father protecting his son no matter what? And looking at Jacob, is the murder gene real, not as a scientific fact, but as a destiny?
It's a terrifying question. Can we ever really escape our biology? Or are we just acting out a script written by our ancestors?
If you are Andy Barber, you have to believe you can rewrite the script. Because if you can't,
Yeah.
then you haven't just failed as a prosecutor, you've failed as a father. And you might be sleeping under the same roof as a killer.
That is a heavy note to end on, but that is the reality of defending Jacob. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask what we would do. How far would you go to protect your own? Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Until next time.